Your logs are lonely, they're disconnected from other telemetry signals, making them less useful. So let me show you how to make them much better using OpenTelemetry. But wait, why are my logs lonely? Well, you might be using something like 𝗵𝗻𝗄, loguru, or slog to write them, and that part is fine. But when you're debugging an issue, you don't really want to grep through thousands of log messages. I mean, who's got time for that? Ideally, you want to correlate logs, metrics, and traces to pin down the exact problem, and you want that correlation to happen automatically, not manually. So this is where OpenTelemetry comes in. OTel is the tool that can do that automatic correlation. But for all that magic to work with your existing logs, you need to add them to the OpenTelemetry ecosystem. So let's go through how to do that. But before you get excited about implementing OTel logs to your favorite programming language, a quick word of warning. At the time of recording, this is only available for a few languages. No JavaScript or Python yet. So for this video, we're going to be using Golang. We have a simple API where you can post and get a list of articles. Logging is done with slog. By the way, we've made videos on both Bruno and slog, so check out the description if you want links to those. But this is how we're going to implement this change. So we have our existing logs in structured logs or slog or even slog. And what we need to do is add a bridge, which is going to convert these logs into an OpenTelemetry log record. That looks like logs with these fields. Then after that, we're going to add a provider, which is going to add some extra metadata like trace and span ID, and also manage the lifecycle of the log record. Then we're going to add an exporter, which is the thing that's going to send our log record to the OTel collector via HTTP, and it's going to send them in a format called the OTel protocol, which is based off protobufs. And once it's inside the OTel collector, we can then send it to something like Prometheus and display it on Grafana, or send it to BetterStack. Wait, what's BetterStack? BetterStack is the best way to manage your observability. It's a hosted web-based service that has some really cool features like log and incident management, status pages, metrics, dashboards, with OpenTelemetry support right out of the box. And it has a super generous free tier. So go and check out BetterStack today. And we're back. Now let's go ahead and implement all of this, which honestly isn't as hard as it looks. First, we'll need to create a Docker Compose file and add this code. So this is going to create the service for the OTel collector, grab the image, name the container, and add a volume which is going to connect our local config to the container config. Then it's going to expose port 4318, which is the port for receiving data over HTTP. Now we need to create the OTel collector config file and add the following code. So here we've created a receiver, which is going to receive OpenTelemetry protocol data in HTTP with this endpoint. Then we're going to export this data to the console. So that's what debug is. And this verbosity detailed is an optional value because without this, we won't be able to see the logs. Then we've got the pipelines for the logs, which is going to outline the receiver, which is OTLP, and then the exporter, which is debug. If you wanted to visualize what the OTel collector is doing, you can copy this config and paste it into OTel bin, which shows that it's going to receive the OTLP data and print it to the console via debug. Now let's update our source code to add a bridge, a provider, and an exporter so it can send logs to the OTel collector. First, let's go through what we already have. So this is our main.go file, which is our API. And here we have a create logger function, and we have some endpoints that run certain logs and certain logic. If we go to create logger, that is inside a logger.go file, and all that's doing is creating a log handler with slog and returning the logger. The first thing we're going to do is import all of the things that we downloaded and a few more. So we're going to import contacts and formats, which will make sense a bit later, but we'll also import the OTel slog package, OTLP log HTTP, the OTel log SDK, OTel resource, and the semantic conventions package. Then we're going to change the create logger function to take context as an argument and return two things instead of one. So we're going to return the slog logger, which we're already returning, but we're also going to return the logger provider for context-related reasons. Again, this will make sense a bit later. Now beneath that, we're going to create our resource with this new resource function, which we'll make later, and handle the errors. Let's actually make that now. We'll scroll down in the code, and beneath the create logger function, we'll add a new function called new resource, which is going to return a resource and an error. This is the way that OpenTelemetry can recognize our service. And if we had traces and logs, we'd need to give them these same resource details. So what we have here is a merge function, which is going to merge two bits of data together. And the first data it's going to merge is the default resource values that OTel is going to provide. But we're going to change the defaults with some new values. So first we're going to add a new schema, which is a required argument, and that's just the OTel schema URL. Then we're going to add a service name, which is 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗀, and a service version. So that is what's going to be created over here. Then we're going to add our log exporter, which again is the thing that's going to export our logs to the OTel collector. This, of course, uses the OTel log HTTP package with the with insecure function. By default, OTLP will send the logs over HTTPS, but with this insecure value, it will change it to HTTP, which is great for testing. Then beneath that, we're going to add our log provider, which, if you remember, is the thing that's going to manage the log record lifecycle and add some metadata. So here we make a new provider with our resource, which we made over here, and then we're going to take our processor, which is the log exporter. So that's how these two bits are connected. Then after that, we're going to add our log bridge, which is going to use OTel slog. So first we'll give our logger a name, which of course could be anything. Then we've got with source, which is similar to add source in our log handler. And then finally, we're going to connect our log provider. So because of that, we don't need to have our slog handler over here. Finally, we're going to delete these values down here and return the logger and the logger provider. Cool, so we're done with this file. Let's go to our main.go file. The first thing we're going to do here is import the context package. Then in our main function, we're going to create a context variable. Now that the createLogger function is returning two values and needs a context argument, let's go ahead and change this line to support that. And then what we can do is add this line of code, which is going to safely shut down the log provider after we close our app. And I think that's all we have to do in this file. Let's go ahead and run our Docker container and see if this worked. So in our terminal, I'm going to run docker compose up. Cool, and we should have our OTel collector running. Now let's go to another tab and run our Go app. Nice. Let's make some API calls. I'm going to go into Bruno and add an article. Then I'm going to get all the articles, which should only have one. And if all went well, we should see some logs inside the OTel collector. Okay, so we have our resource, which is our Go_Fiber_app. We have the schema URL up here. And if we scroll down, we can see our first log, which is added new article, and we have some extra data here. We can scroll down even more to see our second log, which is getting all articles. Nice. This is really cool. If we wanted to, we could add some extra context values to the log, and these should be picked up as well. Now, I know this is a very simple example, but it brings us one step closer to automatic correlation. If we have our logs, traces, and metrics uploaded to OTel collector in this format, then we could do some very cool things. If that's something you want to see much more of, then go ahead and subscribe.